Tim, welcome to AUREA Leaders. Thank you for being here. If you could please just introduce yourself, tell us what you do and what your topic of your speech are, AUREA Leaders.
Sure. My name is Tim Chang. I've been in venture capital in Silicon Valley for 22 years, investing in early stage technology companies. And I was invited here to AUREA to talk about the notion of consciousness when it comes to entrepreneurship, impact, investing at scale.
Love that. And how do you think that plays a part in the golden age? Like, how do you feel like this, this consciousness and entrepreneurship just really fits into this new age that we just stepped into?
It's of utmost importance to me because with all the latest technologies in artificial intelligence and in blockchain, synthetic biology, all of these breakthroughs that are wildly disruptive and exponential, you can almost say we've achieved close to God-level capabilities with these power tools we've built, right? And the thing with these kind of technologies, and even money itself, it's never good or bad objectively, it's what we want to do with it. And so the notion of our intentionality, our awareness, you could say our consciousness with it is super important, because if you've got God-level power tools, doesn't it make sense we want to wield them with closer to God-level consciousness?
That's well put. I think it was Shakespeare that said, nothing is neither good or bad, but thinking makes it so, meaning that we give it the meaning.
That's right, the story that we attach to it, right? And that's actually the root of all spiritual practice too, right? It's, what is it? There's this notion that pain happens in life, suffering is optional. Because when we attach our stories like, why does this always happen to me? This is so unfair. Those sorts of things are our stories, as opposed to, oh, there's a scratch on my car or something like that, right?
Absolutely. And so as entrepreneurs, what is something that we can do to be more conscious of, the suffering, or more conscious of some of the things that maybe not be so helpful for us on this golden age path?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, when I first started thinking about consciousness in business, I kind of took consciousness to mean virtuous, or like being an avatar or the best possible person and doing good. And there is that, but from my own self-growth work and journey, I found it's more about just deep, deep self-awareness, ever more authenticity, vulnerability, honesty with yourself. And so as an entrepreneur, the greatest thing you can do, I think, in implementing consciousness is just keep focusing on self-awareness. Examples of that, why am I really building this? Like, if I'm really honest with myself, is it fame? Is it fortune? Is it status? Is it to prove my dad wrong when he said I'll never amount to anything? That gets almost to, do you know your core wound and how you've been compensating your whole life, and how it shows up in the way you build a business or the way you hire people or manage a team? That's actually something I often ask founders. Do you know your core wound and how that influences why you're even building this?
Wow, yeah, absolutely. And if we can get to that, then we can shift the way that we are hiring people, that we're doing things, and then we have this whole collective change in this golden age.
And that's what I meant by consciousness as just awareness. It's not that it's bad to have blind spots or trauma. You never fully heal it or make it go away. Just all you can have is awareness with it, and then you're aware of your blind spots. Then you can respond in a better way. I'll give you an example. If I'm personally conflict averse, then I might gravitate personally towards other people who are also equally nice and conflict averse, but that doesn't make us a better team if we're all people pleasers, right?
That's
and
true.
so if I know my blind spot, then I might make it a point to hire a COO who is very conflict comfortable.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and then maybe even, learn something that we can bring with you into your own life as well. So let me ask you this. Before I go into that, let me ask you the reverse. So this is a way that we can be more conscious about, our challenges, our blind spots, our weaknesses, however, whatever you want to call that. So what is a way that we can use, we can play to our strengths so that we can push this golden future forward more effectively?
Yeah, a big portion of that to our strengths is knowing your deeper why, which is tied to your dharma, your values, your principles. What do you stand for? And ultimately, if that could be tied into why you're building what you're building, that could be great. And the notion of your own personal mission, how you want to make the world a better, more beautiful place, that ideally ties into your unique strengths of here's my gift, here's what I bring to this potluck called life that I do uniquely well, and that lights me up and makes me feel alive, and that I know I'm good at. And kind of identifying that Venn diagram overlap. I guess Japanese call it ikigai,
Yes.
right? What you're good at, what the world wants, what you can get paid for, right?
Absolutely.
And then I'd add to that spiritual component of like, and this is what the world needs, and really what my values are, what I stand for.
Yes, so powerful. But let me ask you this. What if someone is watching this and they're like, that sounds amazing, but I have no idea what it is that I want to do, or I'm very confused, or I'm conflicted.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person?
I'd say, don't worry, you're not alone. Vast majority of us don't know why we're here in this human existence on the planet this time. We don't necessarily know what that calling is, and that's okay. It's just to be open and curious about that, and follow your instincts, follow the things that really light you up. And also, keep focusing on your personal growth work too, because that is really the name of the game. What's that old saying, know thyself? It's all about self-awareness. The more you really explore yourself, including the shadow sides, the parts you don't like, it'll start to turn you onto what does light you up, what makes you feel most alive. That might be your form of play. And I know that could be kind of triggering, because, wait, that doesn't sound like work. How am I going to get paid for what I like to do as play?
Yeah.
Like, if you keep exploring that, you'll find unique ways that what's special about you can work itself into what it is that you do, right? And I do want to throw out that notion. Early in life, we're often in survival mode, scarcity mindset. I just got to pay my rent. I just got to put food on the table. And that's the real thing, right? And a lot of times we think that, well, my work and what I love and the way I make money, these all have to be the same thing. But there can be different ways you can unbundle that. So it is possible that you figure out the ways you make a living, the ways you make income, might be different than your life's true work, right? And that's a degree of freedom that could be interesting as well, right? I loved music. When I was growing up, I thought, I want to be a professional musician, and nothing made music more miserable than when I had to do it as a paid gig for a living, playing whatever other people told me to. Oh, it sucked the joy out of it, so fun, right? So that was an example where I thought what I loved doing and how I had to sustain myself had to be the exact same thing always. Not necessarily. There can be ways of being creative about that too.
Yeah, and just detaching from having it to make money, because maybe if you weren't so attached to it, maybe you also could make money. I think it's different for every person.
Right.
But I think that if you really attach yourself to a specific outcome, I don't know if you'd agree that sometimes then we just kind of put that on a pedestal, and it's something we can never reach.
That's a great way to put it. Like, for example, if you thought the only way to be a successful musician is you had to get a studio label deal, you had to win, a Grammy or something like that, that's a really limited output path. But there's probably 1,000 different ways to be playing music and getting out in the world, and maybe even to be getting compensated for it, that aren't just that one traditional, linear outcome that you know from before. And that's kind of the creativity of life. That's almost like the art of life.
Yes. So Tim, let me ask you this. This is more on the personal side of things for you. What is something that you do to maintain your, wellness and spiritual balance, while also, doing all these amazing work out in the world? What is it? What are some of your practices or routines?
Oh yeah, for sure. The first one is just a self-care of daily routines, right? I used to do a lot of biohacking and quantified self, and I used to, kind of be known as somebody who would do these kind of out there things, and people would ask, oh, what's the extreme supplement or nootropic or whatever you take? And the interesting part is, like, as I've gone down that rabbit hole, it came down to the basics, and the basics I call SMILE. SMILEs, S, sleep well, 7-8 hours. M, meditate, have some mindfulness practice. I, try some intermittent fasting, give your digestive system a break. L, have loving relationships throughout your life. E, exercise of some form. It seems really boring and basic, and it's common sense basically, but that's the foundation that you need. Like all the other nootropics and NAD supplements, the IVs and all these other things, they're nice, but if your foundation isn't solid, that's like just shifting deck chairs in the Titanic, right? So having a solid daily practice of foundation is really powerful for that. On top of that, I really believe that all men need a men's circle, women need women's circles. You need that peer support, people that will hold you accountable and that you can be truly, truly vulnerable with. And then every year I try to continue with deep work on coaching retreats or counseling or therapy or workshops that just kind of further that personal growth path. And when I realized that personal growth path actually is the deepest form of professional development, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. It shows up in all of those. So I like to even say that, hey, if you want to be a better boss, take some conscious relating classes on how to be a better partner. And it affects your entire life,
Yeah, it's relationships at the end of the day, whether it's with, an employee or your boss or your spouse, it's relationships is the basis of it.
Yeah.
So that completely makes sense.
Yeah.
So if for any struggling entrepreneur out there, what advice would you give that person?
That's a really good question. And the thing I'm kind of noticing is it's, easy to give this sort of like keep positive vibes mindset, when you're in abundance, right? But you really test your consciousness, you test your resolve when things are tough. And for most entrepreneurs, 90% of the journey is a white knuckle terror ride. You don't know where your customer's going to come from next or where funding will be, if it's even out there, right? So it's this constant wall of worries of, am I going to make it? Am I going to survive? But it's maybe a parallel to life too, right? Life is always throwing curveballs at us, and it's never going to be fully peaceful, and we're all going to eventually die in the end. So even something you quoted earlier about just sort of letting go of the death grip on outcome, right?
Yeah.
That there is this notion of that you can kind of surrender into the journey. And for struggling entrepreneurs, that detachment from the outcome of this has to be successful or it's over. That's not usually the case. You'll probably get another shot on goal down the road, even if this one doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, that's okay too. Failure does not mean, failure of you as a person, right? Even if the startup was not a success in the way you thought it would be, you'll likely gain a ton of learning that'll make you more powerful for the next one. You'll make connections. You'll probably identify people you'll want to work with next time around. So always having that sort of growth mindset and that you're always learning. Just like if you have a failed relationship, doesn't mean that it was a bad relationship. You probably learned a lot from it. So that similar kind of healthy detachment from the outcome, growth mindset, and just always open curiosity. That famous saying, like, straight back, open heart.
Oh, so good. Yeah, that's great advice. I think that if we're able to see that as, even like a stepping stone, there's a lot of things that I did in the past where I was like, this is it. I need to be successful in this.
Make it or break it, do or die. Right?
And now, like years later, I'm like, oh, that was a stepping stone for something so much greater. And I thought that was it, So understanding that we're just so much capable of so much that we probably we can't even understand. So.
Right. And even if it feels like it's collapsing, it's not the end, right? Because you probably remember those moments, in that moment where it's like, oh my God, the world is falling apart. And some things didn't go as planned, but life didn't end, the world did fall apart. The truth is, for startups, 75% of them don't make it, but that's okay. It's still a worthy experiment. There's still a lot to be learned from it. It's still worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. That's been so good. I do have a final question for you. And this is more for the AUREA Leaders side of things. And I know this event just began, but maybe just like more just looking into the future, what value do you find from, an event like AUREA Leaders that focuses on the golden age and brings in, these thought leaders and spiritual entrepreneurs together? Like, what value do you see in creating these types of events, or for you personally coming to an event like this?
Several factors. One is inspiration, that you're seeing what other people are doing out there, so you can learn from them, and then getting ideas on how to do it, right? But maybe the most powerful one is just community, so that you don't feel alone in what you're working on, right? Just knowing that, oh wow, there's a like-minded, like-hearted tribe out there that's also facing similar struggles, and a safe space where I can be vulnerable with my challenges. That's really powerful. That alone, where you get to be authentic in that, including, the struggles. That's so valuable when you can go to peers and be like, I'm having a challenge with this. Are you too? How are you learning from it? What are you, kind of doing to adapt to that? As opposed to that usual mindset of, I gotta look like I'm crushing it. I gotta look like I have all the answers,
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Tim. Thank you. This has been amazing, even for me, very insightful. And I really just, my intention is that everyone else watching also gets a lot of nuggets of wisdom out of this. And appreciate you and your work. I'm going to look deeper into it. And I heard your talk was amazing, so I'm looking forward to watching the replay.
Yeah.
But thank you. Pleasure having you. And are you going to be here for the rest of the event? Okay, so maybe I'll get a chance to catch up with you a little bit later.
That'd
as
be
well.
great. Yeah.
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.